If you're into sports betting, BetOnline is where you should go to win money today. Whether it's live bets during games or futures for who you think will win the championship, BetOnline has all the latest odds, news, and information for all your online sports betting needs. Visit the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So before the next big game, head on over to BetOnline and start playing today. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm your host, Polina Edmonds, and today on the pod, I'm very excited to introduce our guest today. She is the 2010 Grand Prix final champion, 3-time Grand Prix champion, and 2-time national champion, Alissa Czisny.
Hello, how are you?
So glad you could come on the show today. So yeah, for everyone listening, her skating was always so soft, so gentle, very balletic and beautiful. For me, Alissa, you've always been an inspiration and role model, both how you skated. I also feel aligned with lyrical skating, but also off the ice. Getting to skate in shows with you throughout the end of my career has been such a blast, just because I've gotten to experience you as a person and not just a skater on TV, and also witness just like good role model behavior in general. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I know that you started skating when you were 1.5 years old, which is so young, so crazy. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Personally, I don't remember. But my my parents are from Wisconsin, and my parents are very active people. And in the wintertime, they would always go cross country skiing. And then they moved to Ohio because of my dad's job. And apparently, so the story goes, my mom was looking for just some winter activity because there wasn't enough snow to go cross country skiing, but it was too cold to do activities outside. So in Bowling Green, the university offers classes, like university classes for the community. So my mom just started taking skating classes for fun. And after she had my sister and I, we didn't want to stay with babysitters. So I guess she had to drag us along to the rink with her. I can't imagine though at like 2 or 1.5 years old that like I actually stood up on the ice. I'm sure I just sat there.
Yeah, that's so crazy. It's just, that is so young. I feel like people barely start walking when they're like 1 year old. So to already be on the ice at 1.5, like, wow.
It was just another playground for us, I guess. And I don't remember not skating.
Yeah,
Obviously. I don't remember starting to skate either.
exactly. When did you start taking from your first like coach?
My sister and I actually never took group lessons. My mom became friends with the coach of this class that she was taking. And this coach, who was my mom's friend, she taught gymnastics class, she taught figure skating. So she ended up giving my sister and I some lessons. And then she moved to Macau for a couple of years to run a rink there. And so we took from another coach, but I think our lessons were few and far between, and it was mostly public skating sessions.
Gotcha. So who were your coaches throughout your career once you started really breaking out onto the national scene and international scene?
Well, I had the 2 coaches that I had in Bowling Green. They were wonderful, wonderful. And one of them really stressed basics, and one of them made skating super fun. And both of them, when my sister and I got to a certain level, they sort of sat down and said, look, we've taken you as far as we can. And we want you to go to these people, or we want you to try out here. So they were very professional in that way, but it also, I have such a great relationship with them still. So then my sister and I ended up going up to Detroit, which was our 2.5 hour and a half, 2 hour drive away. And we took about a year from Diana Ronayne, who coached Ryan Yankee, and she moved to Colorado, and we took from Julie Berlin, who worked underneath Diana Ronayne at the time. So Julie took me for, 12 years of my career, until the last 2 years when I took from Yuka Sato and Jason Dudgeon.
Wow, incredible. So you were injured before the 2014 Nationals Olympic year, essentially. What was the injury that you had, and what was the recovery process / comeback like for you?
So in the end of 2011, I started having a little bit of problem with my landing hip. Not nothing big, like just warming up for some double axles. It started hurting. It hurt when I stretched, but nothing that felt like it prevented me from skating. But it sort of, my consistency got worse and I couldn't figure out what was happening. 2012 Worlds was a complete disaster. So I took some time off after that Worlds trying to figure out what was going on. And that's when my hip really started hurting. It was kind of like the season was over and my hip decided that, now I'm going to tell you that I don't work anymore. So I ended up having hip surgery. I tore the labrum in my hip, had like the top of the femur bone shaved down, stuff cleared up, the whole process in my left hip, my landing hip, in 2012 in June. Then I tried to, did the whole recovery process, 4 months off the ice, this, that, the other thing. And then I did a competition right before nationals in 2013, which was my first time back competing. And I didn't want nationals to be my first time. So 2 weeks before nationals, I just did a small local competition. Short program, great. Long program, halfway through, I landed wrong on a triple flip and dislocated the same hip that I had just had surgery on.
Oh no.
So clearly I didn't compete at that nationals. And I ended up having another hip surgery on the same hip in January of 2013. Went through the whole process again, which was hard. It was easier because I had just been through the process, but harder because I hadn't fully recovered from the first one. Then so I had to do that year. Obviously I didn't compete at nationals. I had to compete regionals, sectionals to qualify for 2014 nationals. And after regionals, I started having trouble with my other hip, the exact same problems. So I just decided that it wasn't, my body decided for me that it wasn't worth trying to compete. So that's sort of what happened. And I ended up not having surgery on my other hip until 2016. And so finally after that, it started to get better, but it's been a long process of trying to be healthy again.
That is so crazy. I think that's one thing that a lot of athletes do go through, especially on an international stage. Injuries are very common, but to go through an injury like that where it takes a lot to fully try to recover it, and then on top of that to also try to train again and get back to your peak it's just crazy.
It's so hard because we as athletes we won't acknowledge the injury either, because you see yourself at such an elite level of being able to move and do things that you don't want to accept that you personally are no longer able to do what you once were able to do. So I think it's hard for anybody, but especially for elite athletes, because we define ourselves by our skating or our athletics.
Exactly. It's not just physical. So much of it is mental. So what was that like for you mentally throughout that entire recovery process?
It was really tough because I felt like I was just coming into my own the last 2010-11 season and then 11-12 season, because I had just changed coaches and I was really learning how to compete, and I was for the first time in my life enjoying competing. So I was really looking forward to the 2014 Olympics, and I thought I could recover, and then having to do it a second time, you can be as mentally strong as you want, but if your body doesn't function, it's hard to give up a dream that you feel like you've worked your whole life for.
Absolutely. It's something that's really hard for a lot of people to accept, not just athletes, but anybody in life that is working so hard towards a goal, and an obstacle comes that you just can't work around. You have to just go through this only path that the doctors are telling you or your coaches are telling you, whatever that may be. It's that takes a whole new level of mental strength just to accept.
To accept and to redefine how you look at yourself, because you're no longer seeing yourself as an elite athlete, trying to qualify for the Olympics, it's like you have to, the injury redefines who you think you are.
Definitely. Going to touch on something you had just mentioned. So you said that season you, for the first time, were actually enjoying competing and really sounds like doing it for yourself. So what was that catalyst moment for you? What changed that made you actually start enjoying the process?
After I failed to qualify in 2010 for the Olympics, I ended up switching coaches. And Jeremy Abbott had been training with me for that prior season and, won nationals spectacularly, went to the Olympics. And he worked with Yuka Sato and Jason Dungeon. So I ended up switching coaches to them, and they are amazing. They taught me so much about competing and training. Not that I didn't know, but I didn't know it to that level. And they worked on my technique so that it was consistent. They taught me how to train so that I was consistent at competitions. And it was a whole process that I thought I knew, but apparently I didn't know that well. And so I, for the first time in my life, was consistent at competitions, and I knew what to expect. So I'm really looking forward to just building on top of that.
That's really cool. As you were 2009 champion, heading into the 2010 nationals, that is the Olympic season. So obviously you were heavily looked at as an Olympic contender to hopefully make the team. In 2010, you didn't make the team. What was that like for you to be on what probably felt like the pinnacle of your career going into it? How did you process what you were going through and recover from that to keep skating?
It's interesting because in 2010, I mean, I didn't just not make the Olympics. I kind of failed spectacularly and was 10th at nationals. So it was really tough for me to go from first the year before to not even coming close to qualifying when I saw myself, competing at the 2010 Olympics. So I didn't know what went wrong. You train so hard, you do everything that you did the year before. And I think I put too much pressure on myself, and then I ended up not even sabotaging myself because of all that pressure, but simply just not living up to the pressure that I put on my own self. And I really thought about quitting skating after that, because you work so hard and then that's what happens. You really don't want to repeat that, and if you think you can't figure out what happened. But I really love skating, and the reason that I continued to skate is I wanted to figure it out, and I really wanted skating to be my career. So I didn't want to give up at the at such a low point in my career. I wanted to figure out what I had done to be able to win nationals and what I could do to get myself better. And I really didn't want to give up skating either.
No, it's really amazing, because that is such like a big moment that you had to go through, but so many skaters go through very similar things, maybe not the exact same situation as you, but so many downfalls that they feel like, okay, this is it. Like something is just, the stars aren't aligning for me. Does this mean I should just stop now and I should just give up,
Yeah, and I find it skating too, because it's, well, not so much ice dancing because they don't leave the ice for jumps, but in ladies and men and even pairs, there's so much that can go wrong, just simply the nature of the sport. It's hard to be consistent, and it's hard to be consistent over years at a time. But I find that while I watch skating, I find that the people that go through the hard times end up coming out on the other side as better skaters. There's something about them that you are drawn to even more because they've gone through that hard time. And it's life lessons that we learn, but it's also, I think, inspiring for the people watching, for whether it's skaters or fans.
Incredibly inspiring. So what advice would you give somebody who is in a rut like that, where you feel like everything that you've been giving just hasn't been working out or hasn't been enough? How do you push through that?
One thing I think is to not give up, because in this day and age with the instant gratification and so many other options that we think we have, it's so easy to want to give up. But if it's something that you really, truly love to do, then I think you'll find a way. But also you have to figure out what isn't working. And that's really what I did, is I went back and I said, what can I change? What went wrong? What do I think went wrong? What can I do better? And I changed a lot of things to be able to come back better. And that's something we have to be honest with ourselves, and only we can be honest with ourselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember being at the 2011 nationals, watching you and all the other senior ladies skating. I was like my first year junior, but I remember being in the crowds just so inspired by the energy in the arena. And yeah, when you skated, it was just electric. So it was amazing to see.
Thanks so much.
So who were your skating mentors growing up? Who did you look up to in skating? And were there any high level skaters that would actually like give you advice and whatnot as you went through your career?
I have to say Scott Hamilton, first of all, because I'm from Bowling Green, Ohio, and Scott Hamilton is from Bowling Green, Ohio. It's a small town, so such unlikely that skaters would come from this town. So I met Scott Hamilton when I was 4 or 5. And, he came to the rink one day and he just skated on a session with all of us kids, and he was doing backflips, and he was such a nice, kind person, but also he's an Olympic champion. And I loved watching him skate. I loved the way he entertained audiences. So I think he was my first role model in skating. But I remember watching, we didn't own a TV growing up. So my grandma always videotaped skating when it was on TV. And every time we visited my grandma, we would watch skating. So I remember just, watching all of the videotapes of skating and trying to imitate what I saw when I went to the rink the next day. And I think, I was always inspired by Nancy Kerrigan and Christy Yamaguchi and Michelle Kwan, of course. But Brian Boitano, I met him and his coach in, I think, 2006 or 2007 Nationals. And his coach became a mentor for my coach at the time. And Brian became my mentor. So it was really great to work with both Brian and his coach, Linda, just because they have been there, right? And the whole process of what it takes to become an Olympian, to become an Olympic champion, and everything along the way of how to train, what to do, how to get shows, what the judges think, all that sort of thing. So it was great to have Brian and his coach in my corner, just being there, standing up by the boards at nationals, but also just giving advice all along the year.
That is so awesome. So working with Brian Boitano's coach, Linda Lever, was there any specific phrase or anything that either of them, Brian or Linda, gave you that you still can repeat in your head, stuck to you, that's something that I'm always going to remember, I'm never going to forget?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of things. They gave so much good advice, and Linda is very smart. She understands so much. But I think I remember 2007 World. I had a bad short program, and I was nervous, very, very nervous for the long. And I remember Linda comparing my long program to a math test. The bubble test, like the SATs or the ACTs, when you fill in the bubbles. And she was like, every time you fill in a bubble, that's the end. You move on, you fill it in completely, and then you move on. You just close that door and you walk through the next one. And she was really trying to get me to understand that, as a program, it was one element at a time. You do one element, you think about that element, you finish that element, it's gone. Instead of getting nervous about the whole program or worrying about what was going to happen, or if, I was going to help the US get 3 spots, it seems like such a simple concept now looking back, but I think that was the first time I looked at my long program as one element at a time instead of this whole big intimidating thing.
That's actually really cool. I like that a lot.
I love using that analogy because I loved taking tests. I really liked school, and something like math class made sense because there were answers. And that's really what, it's really what skating is. It's not an essay question in many ways. It's, you do this, the jump happens. You do this, the spin happens. You do this, the jump happens. And that's why we work for so long. But sometimes it can seem like an essay question. The answer is
very true. Skating is definitely like a multiple choice test. You pick what you're best at, and then you got to bubble it in. That's so awesome. So you did a lot of shows throughout your career and past your career. So how do you like show skating compared with competitive skating?
When I was competing, I actually like such a great opportunity to start doing shows very early on. And I remember starring in my first club show, I think when I was 12 or 13. And it was a club that was just south of us that asked, me to skate in a show. But I really did get the chance to start performing in shows quite early on in my career, which was great. And, of course, exhibitions at competitions. But I did not like skating in shows because I'd actually get more nervous for shows because to me, I don't know, I really liked competition. I liked I liked how you had the result from the competition and you went out there and you either did your job or you didn't, and you got rewarded for it, where shows were a little bit more vague. But as I got older, I really loved shows because I felt like I had the opportunity to use my skating to move other people and to make them feel something. And even now when I do shows, I love that opportunity to continue to do what I love and to share that with other people through the shows. I'm sure you understand the same by doing shows is it's like we have this love of skating, but we get to share it with other people who may not be able to do it, but can get inspired by watching skating.
Absolutely. It's been really cool talking to some other skaters who are doing pro skating now and doing a lot of shows where they've expressed the sentiment to me about how they feel like they've been able to grow a lot in show skating and their artistry past competitive skating, which I think is so, so cool and inspiring that skating doesn't have to end with the competitive outlet.
100%. And I'm such a supporter of professional skating. I mean, if you look back in the 90s when everyone won the Olympics and then went pro and had a 10 or 15 or 20 or 30-year pro career, is that everyone got better after they were done competing. Not a single one of those skaters stayed the same. They all became better. They all became better entertainers, better skaters, because you stop worrying about landing the jumps. Now you're trying 3 jumps instead of 7 in your program. And it's more about you're competing with the other person, or, in case of professional competitions. And it's all about the artistry. It's about the story that you can tell, how you audience and the judges feel. And so I think we don't unfortunately have those opportunities of professional competitions, but at least they're skating beyond the competitive sphere. And I think that's so important for everyone becomes a better skater once they stop competing. That's how I feel personally.
I would also attest to that. I feel like you just have a sense of freedom to also explore whatever style you want and not what you think is going to get you the most points, if that makes sense.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
As well.
Definitely. Well, to build off of that sentiment as well, as somebody who leans more artistic and really appreciates that part of skating, what do you think about current skating now with the huge push in technical kind of outweighing the artistic in skating right now, for ladies at least?
That's a good question. I think, in my opinion, the only person who can combine the art of professional show skating with the technicality is Jason Brown. I mean, I could watch him skate all day. He's a wonderful skater, and just 2 pushes across the ice, I'm just drawn into the way he skates, but somehow he finds a freedom within the rules. And I think that the rules are constrictive as far as they don't really reward artistry. It's about the jumps, and if you can't do the jumps, you really don't have a chance. And in that respect, I understand that's skating, that's competitive skating, that's Olympic skating, and that's what people are going to tune in to the Olympics to watch, is the technical side of the sport, even though they might be drawn to the artistic or the drama of skating.
Yeah,
I just wish that we had another. I wish there were professional competitions to be able to also show that side of skating. And because unless you have Patrick Chan came along and he could do quads and he was artistic, and I think he changed men's skating so that you couldn't just do quads. And as far as the girls, because everyone is doing quads, I mean, that's so hard to do that it's not. I hate to say this, but it's really not important how well you skate if you can land a quad as a lady. And it's too bad, but that's the way it is. And I'm sure someone will come along who is just as brilliant artistically as they are technically, and that will increase the level of skating for the ladies as well.
Definitely. It's definitely a long process to get there, right? Like right now, it's all very, very technical. It's all focused on the jumps, and hopefully in the next few years, or if we have to wait even a decade, it progresses. Sometimes it takes longer, but
this is true. This is true. And I also think regarding the girls, and I say girls because many of them are very young, but regarding women's skating, I think that girls get better as they become women. In their 20s, everyone that you see that's a skater that's older, they're much more mature. They are much more artistic. They're much more emotional when they skate, and you feel much more connected. It's exciting to watch the girls. It's exciting to watch the quads. It's exciting to watch the technicality of that sport. But if they could continue skating, whether it's, after going through puberty, after going through an injury, after whatever it is, I think that they would be better. And I think that women's skating would be much more, I don't even know the right term for that. It would have a broader reach, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be more attractive to a wider audience, like you were saying.
I mean, think of Carolina Kostner or Akiko Suzuki. Like, they were great skaters, and they were my generation of skaters, but they were great skaters. But the longer they competed, the better they became. And you want to watch the Carolina of the 2012 and 2014 years. And if she had stopped skating after 2007 or 2008, she wouldn't have given us the amazing performances that we finally saw. So I think all of these girls that are amazing now, could you imagine them in 10 years, how great they would be, even if they can't do 5 quads in a program?
Exactly. There's a life learning scope that you have to take along with the athletic development. And it just makes you such a well-rounded person and skater that is able to show such a wider range of emotions and connect with more pieces of music and story when you're older. And that's also something that I learned, especially being the young skater at the top of my game. But like, as I move through, and even now, like, I'm not competing, but whenever I skate and I want to create new programs, I feel there's just so much more depth that I can pull from for any piece that I skate to, rather than, when I was 15 or 16, there's just kind of a limitation of what I'm really able to show, at least artistically speaking.
It's different. And I like, how old were you when you went to the Olympics? 15, 16?
15, yeah.
And it's not like how you skated then was bad. You had great programs. I remember them, but you probably would enjoy it in a different way now. When you do a program, whether it's for competition or not, you just enjoy the process of creation and the process of expressing in a different way than you did when you were 15 and 16, which also wasn't bad. I mean, if you go back and watch your programs, it's not like they weren't artistic. It's not like they weren't great programs. I think you would just be able to give something more now.
Exactly. It's also just being able to show like a different type of skating. Like that's really what it is that there's a lot of types of skating that young skaters now are doing excellent in, like choosing the right music and story to portray. Really important for whatever age you are. But there's so much more. There's just so much more that you can try to experiment with, I feel like, when you're older. And so even now when I'm listening to a song in the car, I like think about, oh, how great would this look on the ice? And then I think about, oh, well, I could actually pull from this experience and this experience to try to put an emotion into my skating and draw from that, rather than when I was 15, I would also listen to like some really great, like famous romantic songs. And I'm like 14 years old, never been in love. And I'm like, this would look so amazing. It would not have the same effect. Not nearly have the same effect.
This is true. But you know what? I think that's the gift of skating. And that's what I want people to understand, is that even if you're not competing anymore, skating gives us this wonderful gift of being able to express how we feel to music that we love. And that's, I don't know, I'll forever be grateful to skating for that, because, in dance and skating, what else do you get to express yourself with music? Maybe singing, but I'm terrible at that. That's for sure.
Agreed. 100%. That's really cool.
So I don't know if you've heard, but apparently former NBA player Lamar Odom may be returning to professional basketball in Spain soon. I was reading a press release about how he started taking a pH balancing alkaline supplement called Balance 7, and that's what has helped him bounce back from his hospitalization in 2015. He even said, "I have an enormous amount of energy, which is good for me. It's important when working out. I always need energy to level up." Couldn't agree with that more, Lamar. After watching him fight Aaron Carter in July's celebrity boxing match, I think it's safe to say that Balance 7 is working for him. Cool thing is, we've got a promotion running with Balance 7 right now, where if you go to their website, balance7.com, and use the code BELIEVE at checkout, you'll receive a free 4-ounce bottle of My Smooth Skin with any purchase of Balance 7 products. That product retails at $13.99, so I'd say it's worth it. Again, head to balance7.com and use the code BELIEVE at checkout and get in on the promotion. I know I will. If it worked for him, it can work for you too.
So what are you doing now? You're doing some coaching. I know you've done seminars and shows. What are you up to?
That is sort of what I'm doing. I've been coaching I've been coaching before I stopped skating, but since I retired from competitive skating, I've been doing a lot of coaching. I tried to do shows for a while, had some problems with my hips, had hip surgery, and finally am feeling better. So I've been really happy to get back into performing, into skating and shows. And I'm not a head coach of anybody because I travel too much. But I work with a lot of different coaches. I work with a lot of kids, especially under spins, sort of as a secondary coach. But I love specializing in spins simply because I always loved doing them. But then after I had hip surgeries, I had to relearn myself how to spin. So I feel like the knowledge that I gained through that I can really help share that with other people. Also, as you probably know, a head coach just has so many things to focus on that, giving away the spin lesson to someone else to make sure they have the right levels and they're holding their spins and that they can do them well. I've been able to do that a lot, which I really enjoy. And seminars, I feel it's interesting because you get to meet kids for 3 or 4 days and that's it. But I feel like it's such a great way to share the experiences that I've had in the sport and to sort of pass along the passion that I have for this sport. Recently got back from Ecuador yesterday, and they just got their provisional ICU membership, which is super. But they love figure skating and they just want to learn more. So to be able to go to so little figure skating and so few opportunities, it's just amazing to be able to try to share with them everything that I know from skating.
That's so awesome. I really love that you have that spirit. I think it's so cool to see top skaters give back in that way. I was just talking about this last week because I was in Nashville for US Figure Skating's high performance development camp.
Yes.
But
okay.
Yeah, it's like when I have people ask me, who are you inspired by in the skating world? Like I always say Brian Boitano and Chris Yamaguchi because I'm from the Bay Area, but also they've always just been so involved. So is Scott. Like they give so much. They're so invested in skating, like even decades after they've won, and they're just really great people in that sense. And so I feel that same pull where it's like so fun getting to meet so many skaters everywhere, like you said, for maybe 3 or 4 days. But even so, like you never know what effect or what words you say are going to have an effect on people. And I remember, hearing something from somebody when I was 9 years old, and that stuck for me for a long time. So it's always nice to really give back and like keep staying involved in the skating world.
Yeah, no, you have a really good point because especially like you mentioned, Brian and Scott and Christy, they have been really involved in, you see them at every US Nationals. And they're there supporting and mentoring and just continuing to be involved in whatever way, via shows or, mentoring, showing up at nationals, doing different camps. And I think it's so important as a young skater. I think I remember doing one seminar and I was already junior, senior level. But it's when a national champion or an Olympic champion or just someone famous from skating notices you, spend some time, gives you some advice. It's also, it makes you feel important and it makes you feel, wow, what's the right word? It re-inspires you to continue skating because someone important noticed you and spent time with you and shared with you something they learned from skating. And I think it makes skating more accessible and it makes being successful more accessible.
Absolutely. I think that's actually such a great word to use, accessible. Like in that exact way, it's so inspiring when somebody of that level, of that caliber recognizes you. And that is something that motivates you to continue because they're watching you and it basically makes it seem like they're going to keep watching you. So then in turn you feel like, okay, Like I especially now want to go home and put in even more work so that next time they see me, they do see that improvement that they obviously believe I can make.
Yes. And also I think it shows them that what they are as champions is not that much different from you, because they came from where you are. And, we all started out as a nobody, and we, through a lot of hard work, became successful in skating. And I don't know, just being there and being with them helps them understand that we're real people and we started out just like them.
What are the types of lessons that you try to leave your students? So you are a spin specialist, obviously, but if you were to leave them with some type of inspiring thing that they could take beyond skating, what are those types of things you try to touch on, if you do?
I think two big things is, one, I try to remind them why they started skating, what they love about skating, and why they're skating. Part of it, because it really is so personal. And it's really hard to be successful if you don't like to skate, if you don't want to skate, if you don't remember why you're skating. If this is something that you absolutely want to do, then you'll make the sacrifice, you'll make the choices to be successful in whatever way whatever success means to you. So I think that's one of the big things that I try to remind everybody, is that there's a reason you come into the rink, but make sure it's the right one, not just because your mom is driving you there. And the other one is just that we can always learn and we can always be better. And that's what skating is just us trying to continually improve ourselves and continually try to be better than we were yesterday. And that's what winning is.
That's what true winning is. That's really awesome. I like that a lot. What was the retirement transition like for you?
For me, it was pretty tough. I defined myself way too much by my skating. And I went to college full time. I got my degree while I was competing. So I should have had something else in my life besides skating, but I loved skating so much. My whole life was around skating. All of the people I knew were in skating. And so retiring, I felt like I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I didn't know how else to define myself.
How did you figure that out? Like, what made you be okay with that transition, and what lifted you out of the skating definition of who you were?
Ooh, that's hard. It's not like I left skating, that's for sure. But I feel like sometimes in the skating world, once you retire and you don't move on from skating, people think that you're stuck. I'm sure you probably gotten that feeling as well, that if you haven't become as successful in another part of your life as you were in skating, then you're just not successful. But that's not the way it goes, right? It's about what you want to do to make yourself happy, what career path that you really feel a passion for. And it's hard to find that after skating, right? Because you worked since you were a young child to reach these goals. So it's not like we are unfamiliar with hard work. It's just that we can't find another passion that we want to work as hard for. And for me, it was several years of sort of floundering. I really liked skating. I wanted to perform in shows. My body wasn't letting me perform in shows. I wanted to coach skating, but I didn't want to coach skating if I wasn't performing in shows. I didn't know what else to do with my life. I'm interested in a lot of other things, but I just didn't feel ready to leave skating. So I sort of floundered around, did a few shows, did a bunch of coaching, and I sort of stayed in skating, obviously. And I really am sort of finding how much I want to share my passion for skating in whatever way that is. I have a couple projects that I'm working on as well regarding skating. And I'm grateful that our sport lets us continue. We have professional shows. We have opportunities to make a career in skating, even though we're no longer competing. And, what other Olympic sport gives you that option? So I'm really grateful for skating, is that I didn't just have to become a coach, that I can still perform.
That's really awesome. Something that I've learned, that struggle to kind of find yourself outside of the sport but not really want to let go, is something that's been very relatable for a lot of people I've talked to in the skating world, and myself included. I've only been in retirement haha, for like 1 year officially, but really out of competition since for the last 4 years. So I have noticed, especially in this past year, a complete change in my perception and the way I think and view skating than I was when I initially retired. And that hardship, definitely experienced it. The struggle of like trying to find myself and like find an identity outside of Clean Edmonds, the figure skater. It was hard. And I feel like by staying in skating in some way or another, I have like different projects I'm working on as well, but things like doing this podcast, things like doing seminars and getting to meet and talk to a lot of skaters, I feel like has really healed my relationship with skating in a way I didn't even know needed healing.
That's
But
amazing.
it's been really cool to see how you can be involved and like still make an impact and still teach things to other skaters who maybe need help. And it doesn't have to be only through competitive skating, because as you know,
Yes,
a lot of your identity gets formed on, I have to be on the podium or nobody's going to care. And that's just not true.
It's really unfortunate, because that what you said exactly is how we feel as competitive skaters, is that you are not important unless you're on the podium. And it's such a small percentage of the people that make the podium. There's such a small percentage of skaters that make nationals. And skating is, I mean, it can give you so much more than just the title or just the medal. Like, I am such a big fan of adult skating, for example, because adults are skating because they love to skate. They, of course, they want to make this challenge, or they want to, compete at this competition, or they have certain goals for themselves, but they come into the rink and they expect that they're going to come into the rink their entire lives, whether it's 6:30 in the morning before they go to work, or during their lunch hour, or on weekends. And I wish skating could be like that for everybody, that it's not just a competitive sport, but it's a way of moving. It's a way of life. It's a way of expressing how you feel. It's a great form of exercise, and it shouldn't be, our results from it shouldn't define who we feel that we are or how we see other people, which is, as you know, actually how the competitive skating world can be.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's very difficult to disalign yourself from that when you're in it.
Yes.
And so it takes obviously a lot of reflection once you're out of it to kind of understand that that is how you were perceiving it. And then to, on top of that, try to flip the perception and see, okay, how can I make this a really positive experience, not only for myself, but for other people?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So, and that's why it's like really cool that you're coaching and you're doing seminars and still reaching out back towards the skating community, because there's just so much that people in your position can still give and make impact with.
And I'm happy that US Figure Skating now is promoting more avenues with skating, because you see that, like, the Olympics, going to the Olympics is this great goal, and it's you've been there, you know the experience, you work your entire life and you've dedicated so much to making that goal. But not to detract from that, but there are thousands and thousands of skaters who will never get near to that goal, and they should still be allowed to skate.
Yes.
And so I'm glad that US Figure Skating is promoting other avenues, whether it's the oh my goodness, the what's the track that just had their nationals? The
collegiate skating?
No, well, that one too. Well, collegiate skating is great, actually, but like showcase and theater on ice,
theater
synchronized
on ice,
skating.
Synchro. Yeah, there's so
and
many.
even the Excel series, or solo dance. Like, these are great avenues. You still have a goal. You still are working hard. You're still bettering yourself, and it's okay that you don't qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah,
that doesn't define how successful your skating career is. You can still enjoy it. You can still become a better skater and become a better person. And so I think US Figure Skating's promoting that much more than they ever have, or at least it appears like they are. But I'm really glad that they've put some effort into these other avenues.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's so much that you can take from skating or any sport, no matter what level you reach. And with those programs that US Figure Skating are in fact pushing out, I definitely wish that I had that when I was a skater, 10 years ago. So it's been really awesome to see them start implementing these things and see the younger skaters actually benefit. And you can see it too.
Yes.
It's like driving a sense of deeper community within different skating circles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I've learned, actually, speaking of community, I've been part of Ice Dance International, that tour for the last few years. And it's as much a community engagement as it is a tour. And I love the tour because there's so much about the performance and the skating and the artistry, but also we have a lot of community engagement. And I really understood after that tour, after I participated in the first time, I really understood how important it is to the community to engage with them. We did a bunch of classes. We did some school classes, but we did a bunch of classes for the adult skaters of the local community, and their response to it, their feedback, and their just how excited they got every time we had a class with them. It made me realize that's what skating is about. It's about the community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about, being able to express yourself in whatever form, whether you're working on a three turn and you're trying to do the 3-turn to the music, or you have time away from, let's say, real life, to be able to spend time with people who enjoy the same things that you do.
Exactly. Very, very on point. Cool. Well, my last question would be, it is an Olympic season. We have a lot of great ladies skating going into this nationals, a lot of really good skaters. If you've been watching, who are the ladies that you're really looking at going into this nationals, into our ladies team, and both nationally and internationally, if you'd like to answer that?
Whew. First of all, it's been so tough for them with COVID. I know that most of them have been training, but it's hard to train in situations where you don't have every Grand Prix, where you don't have people at nationals, where you don't have people at Worlds, when you don't know if there's going to be the Olympics happening. It has to be so much harder, just the stress and the unknown, to be able to train for that. And timing is everything. Timing is everything in Olympic cycles.
It is. Mm-hmm.
And if I'm looking at internationally for the Olympics, it's going to be the young one. It's always the young one that wins the Olympics, right? It's always the one that you think is going to win, that's been, dominating everything for the few years beforehand, that ends up being the one right below them that comes up and wins, which would be the Kamila Valieva, the one Russian that has the amazing quad toe, and it must be amazing to do quads. I wish that I had experienced that feeling in my life, but I'm very glad that I didn't have to do them.
Yes, me too. Definitely.
Let's see. Nationally, I haven't really seen anybody compete this season. I've seen a little bit of Alyssa Liu, because Jeremy's been working with her, and I think he and Massimo have done an amazing job. Artistically, she is a much more mature skater. And I know she's working to get the triple axel and the quad lutz back, or maybe she has, I don't know. And of course, Brady Tunnell and Mariah Bell and Karen Chen. Am I missing anybody? Amber Glenn. It'll be quite the battle, because they're all very much capable of qualifying for the Olympics. And who knows, there's going to be somebody else that we didn't discuss, and they'll be up in the picture too, right?
That's what makes it exciting,
It's never what you expect for the Olympics.
Never. And that makes it even more stressful for all the competitors. But that's life.
This is true. This is true.
That's really cool. Well, I'm really excited to watch this season. I think there's just a really deep pool of talent, both nationally and internationally. So it's going to be...
I want to know who you think will be our team.
Who I think will be our team?
Yeah. We have 3 spots, right?
Yeah, we do, I believe. Well, I think we secured 3, and then they're going to make sure that it's secured at a Senior B, I think, Neville Horn Trophy this season.
That's a new rule this year, isn't it? I haven't delved into the qualification updates with the whole Neville Horn Trophy thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's new or they did it last Olympics too. I have no idea. I don't know if it also has something to do with there just wasn't any international competition. So maybe the points just need to be like secured more. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
It could
Maybe
be.
COVID changed things.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. 3 spots. There's so many great skaters. I definitely think I love watching Amber Glenn skate. She has that triple axel from last season. Hopefully she can
So
put it together.
impressive.
Yeah, I think for her, like mentally is going to be what she needs to work on, being really consistent and just putting it all together when it counts. But if she did, I think she's definitely like our full package. Brady Tennell also so strong technically. Karen Chen, same thing, like amazing artistic skater. They all have like great qualities. So does Mariah Bell. Alissa also, she's young, but like she's very consistent, which is very, very important in our sport. So it's going to be, I don't think that there really is a prediction right now. I mean, I guess we'll see throughout the Grand Prix season that happens in the fall, but all of them just have amazing qualities. So we're going to see.
And I hope they'll be able to compete. I hope there will be an Olympics this season. I hope that everything will go according to plan. And I just hope that everyone can train healthfully, because it's been such a tough couple of years for the competitors, for everyone. But could you imagine competing with the unknowns of last year?
No, I think also just the lack of competing would, at least for me, been really hard, like that you need to practice that adrenaline. So to have a year like lacking that, I feel like going into this season would be rather frightening, just because all of a sudden you're back and there's been no practice.
Skating in front of cardboard cutouts and then getting to the Olympics with, maybe there'll be real people in the stands. That will be different as well.
Maybe. I guess we just don't know. Big question mark. But
cardboard cutouts of dogs.
Yes. Oh no. And cats. Got both.
I love that.
All of them. Oh my goodness. But yeah, putting really good vibes out for everyone and all the competitions this year. Hopefully everything goes according to plan. So we'll see.
I'll be watching. I'll be cheering them all on.
Same. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. That was a lot of really, really good insight and advice for people to listen to. So thank you, Alissa.
Yes. Thanks for having me. And I hope people keep skating, because we have such an amazing sport that we're a part of, and it's for everyone.
It is. Amen.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Please leave me a comment, leave me a review. I love hearing what you guys have to say. Follow me on my Instagram. That's where I'm promoting this. My username is @PaulinaEdmonds. And please DM me if you have any requests for my podcast, any interview requests, or if you yourself would like to come on, you have a fun skating story that you'd like to share. I'm always looking for new voices to feature, so please reach out to me. And stay tuned for my future podcast episodes. I release every Tuesday, and I can't wait to talk to you guys next week.